I think it's ready to drive. Not much of a first drive, but I'll take it.
I'm wrapping my head around our Studebaker project, and I want to get the gauges working. Now this is the gauge setup for the Dakota, and I'm kind of stuck with a circuit board like this that controls the different gauges, and I'm laying awake at night wondering how I'm going to do this to make it look like a vintage truck. Now John, the owner, gave me a dash out of an old Studebaker, and actually the one that came out of that truck, and all it is these stepper motors. And I've got a video on the Tahoe of me replacing the stepper motors that are bad and replacing all the lights with LED, the blue ones. So you can look it up on how to do that. But basically what I'm going to do is take the stepper motor out of the plugs here, and I'm going to mount them to the back of the gauge, and I'm going to make my own needles to poke through and point in the right direction. Now looking at the gauges, they all do kind of a half moon sweep. So the gauge range should be close, but like this is the fuel, and it doesn't really have a full or an empty, so it just needs to move. If it's not 100% accurate, that's fine. I bought another dash. I'm going to buy another dash. And so I've got two sets of circuit boards and plugs, and what I'm going to do is take a hole saw and just cut the plug out of the circuit board, and then I can take that whole piece and stick it on the back of this one. I'm going to solder 4 little wires to the spare stepper motors and then plug them into the circuit board. So the circuit board will actually be sitting in the firewall with little wires going to the stepper motors, and then the gauges are going to be working properly. Now the steering column comes out quite a ways, and we got to tilt one to get the steering wheel out of the way, but there's still quite a bit of a gap there, and that's going to be ugly. What I'm going to do though is, because of the Fleetmaster, we got 2 sets of speedometers and 2 sets of like a whole dash. What I'm going to do is take the other stepper motor and put it in the back of the speedometer. Now if you look at if we line up if we put 0 at horizontal, 3 is at 12 o'clock, and 5 or 5.5 is at 3 o'clock. And it's actually the exact same on the speedometer. So with the stepper motor in the middle here, he's going to have a working tack that looks vintage, and it's going to be mounted on the steering column just to the right of his working gauges. So it's going to take a while to solder all this and do it in there, but I'm going to do it right. It's going to look pretty sweet when I'm done, and the budget on that is another dash for 50 bucks at the wreckers. So, and my time, which is worth millions and millions, but in the end, he's going to be having an awesome truck. Here we go. So this is the wiring. I've tried to clean it up a little bit. So essentially all I'm going to do is plug my dash in, have it secured here. I haven't figured it out 100% yet. I'm going to get rid of this plastic yet, but all I'm going to do is plug in the dash here, and then run my little wires up to the gauge cluster from the original Studebaker. Then the fuse panel is going to sit right somewhere where it's not in the way, but is accessible. And also his OBD 3 port will be right here. And then the light switches are going to be, I'm just going to make a little access hole. And they're ugly. I don't want to have this anywhere where it doesn't look like an original Studebaker. So what we're going to do is the fan controls, wiper controls, and light control. I'm going to knock a little hole here, and he's just going to have to reach underneath the dash and turn his lights on. That way it's going to still look vintage. Then when we're done, I'm going to take a sheet of steel, and using the English wheel and pounding it a little bit, I'm going to make a nice cover that covers all of this so you don't see any of it. I'm going to leave it outside, let it get nice and rusty, and then when it's the right patina, then we'll put it on there. And all of the electronics are all going to be hidden in this compartment. That way we got a nice clean engine bay look, and doesn't take away from the rat rod type of look that we're going for. So I'm excited about that. So we are thinking though, we got a couple more comments on what to name the the truck, and now it's between Studebaker and RT Baker. So it's an RT 360 Magnum in here. So if you guys want to go in there, I really want to get your guys' opinion on what you guys like better. Just go in the comment section and say either RT Baker or Studebaker, and we'll let the owner get the ratio at the end, and we'll see what it actually gets named. So he's going to get some custom license plates made, and he needs to know what to put on it. So if you guys can let me know, that'd be great. And here we go. What I'm doing here is taking the step motors from the dash on the Dakota, making new needles out of some scrap aluminum that from the house rebuild, just cutting it to shape, and then taking the old needles, and I'm cutting I took the needle off, and this hole here is tapered, so I can push that onto the stepper motors. And what I'm doing is taking it and cutting the peg, and then cutting a groove in there with with an old hacksaw blade, and then I'm Gorilla Gluing the needles in place. And what that's going to allow me to do is cut that needle to wherever I want it and bend it to the size. And what I'm going to do is put those stepper motors in the back of an old Studebaker gauge, so I can set my height. The needle's got to come out somewhere around the same spot, and you can see how much is actually shown. It's really only the white dashes there that you see on the through the glass, which is here. So putting the stepper motor there, then I can solder wires to the back of the stepper motors here and plug them into the Dakota dash, so the stepper motors will still work. So I'm gonna have a fully functioning dash, speedo, temperature, gas, oil. I'm going to Gorilla Glue them. I'm doing this all inside because it was really cold last night. Shop was a bit chilly, and I can watch Top Gear while I'm doing it. So I love my job.
Have you run the highways department? Yes, or that you're driving a car with effectively a blender on the back? And there was another issue.
You can't just buy these. Now, these are free if you're walking through a field and you see an old car sitting there, but this has a perfect patina to match our truck, and then with the stepper motor, I can make it work just the way it's supposed to. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it's still pretty cool. So we're gonna mount that in an old headlight bucket and put it in the steering wheel there on the column there, somewhere between the dash and the steering wheel, just to take up that space. But I like that. Well worth the time to make that work. Taking the center here, screwed the stepper motor on the back, and then I've made my own needle so I can put that on there. I made it plenty long and just fold the needle right over, and that gives me the right amount of clearance. You got to be able to have the needle, like the needle should be able to fall on its own, and that's why I just took the little pegs out of the Dakota dash and put them in there so it stops against that, if you can see that. And then I just take the tin snips and just cut the extra off. So I do want the white showing through the glass the entire distance. So basically at the top, it should almost be flush, just under. And then I'm gonna pop that gauge in there and then run individual. I'm just gonna do, I tried soldering the back of these, but it didn't work very well. So I'm gonna butt connect them. And then essentially have a plug that I can plug into the dash with wires, so it looks kind of like that. And then I'll put silicone, once I fold it over, I'll put silicone in there, and that'll keep them ever from moving. So he's gonna have a fully functioning dash, even though it's taken a long time. But when you look at it, like, the needles do look pretty sharp. So the speedo gauge is taking quite a bit of extra work. I had to take the guts out, but I still wanted to keep the numbers for the odometer. So even though it's not functional anymore, it's pretty tight for space. So what I have to do is take my stepper motor and very carefully put it in the back. And it just fits through a hole that I had to drill. Then I made this little plate, hole in it, a little support, so I gotta stick that this way. And then through the holes that I drilled in the side there, I can put a little screw. Being very careful of that stepper motor because they're pretty fragile. Then I can drop the stepper motor in and line it up with the holes that I've put on the other side. And then I'll hook my wires up afterwards, but connect them there and drop my needle on, and I got a working speedometer from 1950 something or 48 or 57 or somewhere around there. So basically, I put the wires in, had it run kind of nice, but the plugs at the back, these can, they really can only go in 2 ways. Just turning them 90 degrees is the same as turning them 280. Sure, we'll go with that. So now it's basically fire it up, put the gauge kind of where it's supposed to be, then turn it off, because I think the gauges, what they do is they butt up against that little peg to start off for as a starting reference point. But then again, I'm not sure because I've never put gauges from a Dakota and an old Studebaker before like this, so I'm just making this up as I go. Basically, this is my oil pressure, so I'm idle kind of in the middle. When he's pegging it at 5 grand or whatever, it should be pretty close to the end. This is a long process. I don't know if you can see the gauge there, that's the oil pressure. Just kind of kicks up a little bit. There it is. So I'm going to rev it up, it should go up a little bit. There we go. So all that work, moment of truth, is it gonna work? It was a lot of work, just everything was mirror image because of the way the wires and the plugs, I was butt connecting the back and then plugging in the front. So it does take a lot to get it to work, but moment of truth, we'll see what happens. Nice. So it's charging. My gas, I don't know if that's right or not. Oil pressure is at 40, and coolant, that one might be backwards, so I might have to do something there. Tack right here, that's working nicely. All right, let's see if the speedo works. I got the, oh no, I can't go anywhere. We'll have to find out if the speedo works another way. Maybe a burnout. Hey, you're still watching, great. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You never know what you're gonna get. If it's got a throttle, we work on it. Help support the channel by picking up a tape boss off tapeboss.com.
And remember, if you're not filthy, you're not rich.